Greetings, anybody, everybody, whoever's out there. Just thought I'd go live for a little bit. Hope everybody's doing well on this Monday, July the 7th. It is a somewhat rainy day. Well, at least it was in the evening here. This evening, I've only been home for about and close to an hour, maybe not quite. But yeah, just have been very busy, have a lot of stuff yet to do here, but just thought I would see if anybody was on. So no topic, just kind of a hang. Yeah, again, not a lot going on, but thought I would hop on for a little bit and see what was going on out there. Yeah, I am winding down my time here in this apartment. We'll be moving very soon. Hello, Bob. I was just on not too long ago, a couple days ago. I went live. I think Saturday night I was live pretty late. Yeah, so not much longer in this apartment. Then I will be moving. Trevor, what is going on, my guy? If you want to come up, let me know. My standard rules apply for friends only to be up on the screen. That's the kind of, exclusivity that this kind of thing has. But I also know it's a Monday, and I know that people don't always stream on Mondays, but I thought I would just check it out. No, Bob, I am getting married in just less than 2 weeks. So I will be moving. Richard, my friend, I just messaged you. There's a video it should have just posted. Thanks to you. And yeah, check out my message. Of course, Trevor, you are, of course, part of the exclusive club. But yeah. Yeah, again, if I know you and you would like to come up, let me know. But I'll put the link up if I know somebody, again, that I know wants to come up, because there's way too many wild stuff out there for putting stuff out there willy-nilly. But hey, Zach, what is going on? That's right. It is Ringo's 85th today, which is insane that he's 85 and looks and sounds as good as he does. Still playing shows. I watched a little bit of the live stream earlier today from Beverly Hills, his Peace and Love event, while I was working. Yeah, he is a hero to anybody that wants to be in that kind of shape at 85. Yeah, I mean, it's not much, but I do appreciate, while that you're on here, I do appreciate the gift very much. Yeah, so oh, there you are. Yeah, so everybody go check out. Well, I've got you. Just posted a VCLT video from Richard. I'm sure you are, Jason. I'm sure that towel is over the shoulder. The loins have been cooked, and the mayonnaise is a flowing. That's right, and no handshakes either. He's a germaphobe. If there's anything wrong with that. Yeah. So, yeah. So, got to pack up some stuff. I did get a friend of mine, a family friend, gave me a banjo yesterday. It's a claw hammer style banjo, so it's an open back on the drum. Well, Richard, if you only knew Jason, which you do, but he just gave me a banjo. He said it was sitting in his closet for like 40 years and was just getting rid of it. So I've kind of been playing with it a little bit. It's interesting because I have a banjo with a resonator on the back. Like your traditional style banjo. This is, again, the claw hammer style with the open back. So it doesn't have the same resonance to it, but is meant for the claw hammer kind of flailing style banjo playing. So I need to get them both serviced. This drum on this banjo is a little bit dry, but, little Neutrogena will help that. Jason says hello. Water tonight. I'm full of pizza, so I've got to flush out the sods. Let's see. Indeed. Yeah, Jason's actually sold off his record collection. He has taken up a new hobby of classifying leaves in the forest. So his house is now full of oak and poplar and magnolia and pine needles and that sort of stuff. It's a weird hobby, but hey, he logs it into Discogs or Dislogs, I should say. It's because it's leaves. Sorry. That's what you're going to be getting when I have no topic. I know I showed some of these. Well, I showed all these in a recent finds video. That's right. I guess, yeah, in Canada, you're only allowed to have maple. Sam, Richard, Jason, and chat. That's right. We love you, Trevor. We'll see you, man. And that's all I got to say. As you can imagine, Jason, if we're talking, some arbor talk, plenty of magnolias around here. The crepe myrtle right outside of my window. I think I've sent you a picture of my crepe myrtle. All the oaks, Oak Ridge boys. See ya, Trevor. She's the gal that has the black and white wig over her eyes, isn't she? What do I have here? I just grabbed a stack of records that mean little to nothing. I think I talked about most of these, but it was the closest one that I had. This record here, I did not know much about this album, and I found it online at Dark Side Records from Poughkeepsie. And you have J.D. Souther, Richie Furay, and Chris Hillman. Obviously, J.D. Souther wrote with the Eagles and Glenn Frey. He covered the song Heartache Tonight. Gonna be a heartache tonight. Hillman was obviously in the Byrds. Furay was in Poco, Buffalo Springfield. And they did this album, which I know Real Gone Music did a, what's it called? Reissue, that's the word. I Collect Records. Did a reissue of this. I did not get this because this was on sale for like $5. The Asylum record label there with a little Doctor Who looking thing. But really, really good. If you like, that country rock kind of sound, it's really good. It's pretty much evenly distributed amongst the three guys. They all have 2 or 3 different songs, and they're all in really good voice. It's just really, really solid listening, and I was pleasantly surprised. I'm doing my best to collect birds and bird-related projects, solo projects, and so anytime I see something affiliated with that, I try to find it. Plus, when you got a meatball like that on top of your head, how could you not buy it? Uh, no, Glenn is permanently glued to his basement. So, um, well, from what I understand, it's the sweetest honey that you can buy. Tupelo, Mississippi. Yeah, I know that you are spinning that wax. Um, yeah. Tupelo honey, that was supposed to be like Van's like answer to, like a lot of those guys were listening to um like the bands and were making more like down to earth kind of records. There's a great scene, I don't know if you remember this, Jason, in The Last Waltz, where Robbie Robertson's sitting, and it's like late in the evening, and he has Martin Scorsese sitting there with him, and he's like, there's this song by Van Morrison. It's like this new album. He's like, have you heard it? It's so good. And then he puts on Tupelo Honey, the title track, and like it's just like in this like other world listening to it. And I know they just had like a Robbie Robertson tribute concert maybe early this year, and they showed that clip, and then Van came out and sang Tupelo Honey, which is pretty cool. But it was supposed to be Van's like happy album. Like he had just gotten married. I think he had just had a child. The cover has him with his wife like on the horse. And I mean, great songs. I mean, like I Want to Rue You. That's a fantastic song. Talking about the deep cuts on there. Isn't Wild Nights on there? Isn't that the first track? Ooh, Wild Night is calling now, now, now. I think it's the first song. And then that saxophone. Streamline Cannonball, or Straight to Your Heart Like a Cannonball. Again, Moonshine Whiskey is on there. Tupelo Honey is on there. What else is on there? That's the ones I can think of off the top of my head. Let me take a look. Let's see. She's a sweet Tupelo honey. Sorry, Jason, to disappoint you for all the stuff in my head was not enough. Old Woodstock. That's a great song. Going down to old Woodstock, which is where he was living at the time. Starting a new life. You're My Woman is kind of like the R&B, like slow burn track. When That Evening Sun Goes Down is a great tune. Yeah, just a solid record. Sometimes I think of it as my favorite. That's up there with Astral Weeks and Moondance for me. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts on it, Jason. Was that in your like stack of like used records that you just recently bought? Well, it's not the last like 3 weeks or so. So yeah, that's what I think about Tupelo Honey. And she's an angel of the first degree. Oh, she's an angel. So love that. Speaking of the birds, I also have. Yep. Good job. I got this one on vinyl. This is an 80s reissue of the Byrds Untitled. Solid record. Again, not where I would start with the Byrds, but just a really good double album. Half of it's live, half of it's studio. You've got stuff like Chestnut Mayor on here, Truck Stop Girl, Take a Whiff, which is kind of a funny song about doing some snow, if you will. And this is like the country rock version of the Byrds. You have Roger McGuinn being the only original guy, Skip Batten on the bass, Gene Parsons on drums, no relation to Graham, and then Clarence White, who obviously is like the king of the B-bender guitar. And Jason, as you know, he is the original owner of Marty Stewart's current guitar. This is stuff that's just really solid. They do a whole side of 8 Miles High. It's like 18 minutes long. But side one, they have the song Lover of the Bayou, which Tom Petty would cover on the first Mudcrutch album. Really, really solid, kind of like swampy kind of song. They do Positively 4th Street, the Dylan tune, Nashville West, which is this great instrumental that Clarence White did. They do So You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star, Mr. Tambourine Man, and Mr. Spaceman, 8 Miles High. And then they have the second disc of studio tracks. So a very solid record. Again, not where I'd start with the Byrds, but if you like that country rock stuff that they did later on, very, very underappreciated album there. Okay, I mean those are the ones. I mean that's where I would start you. And actually, I think a couple of those I know you kind of asked about, Jason, when you were purchasing them. But St. Dominic's Preview is kind of like the melting pot between Moondance and Astro Weeks. It's got stuff like Jackie Wilson Said I'm in Heaven, which is like the big single. But then you have Listen to the Lion, Almost Independence Day, St. Dominic's Preview, which is just like a fantastic, epic song, as you know. As we gaze out on St. Dominic's Preview, look at the band. Thank you. And then Moondance is just not a bad song on that one either. There's first 10 Van Morrison records. That man put out some great music in a very short amount of time, with the exception of Blowing Your Mind, which had Brown Eyed Girl, but then a bunch of covers, which was the first one. Starting point for the Byrds. Well, obviously the Byrds were like in two different camps. You had like the Jingle Jangle Byrds, and then you had the Country Byrds. So you had like pre-Sweetheart of the Rodeo and then post-Sweetheart of the Rodeo. And actually, what I would start with is this one that I picked up. This is my favorite of the Jingle Jangle Byrds. This is Younger Than Yesterday. A lot of people would say start with, the first, Mr. Tambourine Man. And, that I would not, tell you not to do that. But this, Younger Than Yesterday is where like Chris Hillman was really coming into his own as a songwriter. You were really getting stuff from David Crosby in full effect. McGuinn was doing his thing. You've got some great stuff on here because this is like the merge. This is like the point where, like, with Hillman taking part so many songs, he was coming from a bluegrass background. He was providing that country rock element that the Byrds didn't have on those first 3 records, because this is their fourth, because they had Turn, Turn, Turn was the second after Tambourine Man, and then they had Fifth Dimension, which is kind of like the Psyche record with 8 Miles High was on that one. But this album, this has, So You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star. This has My Back Pages, the Dylan tune. This has Time Between, the Chris Hillman song, Mind Garden. Is that what it's called? Mind Gardens by Crosby. It's kind of trippy. Renaissance Fair is also trippy. Have You Seen Her Face is a great Chris Hillman tune. The Girl with No Name, Why, those are great kind of single songs. So I would start here. So You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star is just a fantastic track. Obviously, I know it originally because of Tom Petty. That used to be a big opener for him, especially on the Pack Up the Plantation tour, the Southern Accents tour. So I would start here, Younger Than Yesterday by the Byrds. This is a mono Columbia 2i for you nerds. So, that's where I'd start. And then for the Country Byrds, Sweetheart of the Rodeo, no question. Thank you, Kevin. Good to see you. Hello, Christian. Yeah, I mean, and Richard, So You Want to Be a Rock and Roll Star is just one of the all-time great rock tracks. I mean, Patti Smith did a version of it. REM covered it at one point. I think they even brought Roger McGuinn out and did it, and then Petty covered it close to right up to the end. I mean, he would pull it out for different tours. I know he did it when they were playing the Beacon in like 2014 or so. They were doing a lot more like deep cut kind of songs. So, Yeah, I was just thinking. Then My Back Pages is my favorite of the Dylan covers that they did. Um, so very, very solid stuff. Yeah. So um, what else do I have here? Um, Richard, if you would like to come up, please do. I don't know how long I'm going to be on, but because it's a work night and I felt tired. I took a 2-hour nap yesterday. Um, so I do have another Birds album right here that I bought because I'm trying to get all their stuff on vinyl. I only had Sweetheart of the Rodeo, and I need to really do an upgraded copy of that. That was a copy that a buddy of mine sold me for a couple bucks, and it's got a few pops and hisses on it. And then I have the album Pre-Flight, which is technically a compilation, but it's a lot of, at that time it was unreleased original stuff from like pre Mr. Tambourine Man. No worries, brother. I'm glad that you're in the chat. So keep the questions rolling. But there you go, Craig. Good to see you. I think you missed it earlier. I got a free banjo yesterday from a buddy. So very, very cool. I was saying something. What was I saying? I don't remember. But I know. I was trying to find Birds albums, so I went to my record store. It wasn't this past weekend, but the weekend prior, and I picked up that Untitled, The Younger Than Yesterday, and then picked up Easy Rider, which is just a fantastic album. Again, that same lineup from the Untitled, with the exception of the drummer. You had John York, on bass. John York was on here, and he was kind of in and out of the Birds before anybody even knew it. The Birds went through a lot of lineup changes. I mean, the original 5 guys, you had Roger McGuinn, David Crosby, Chris Hillman, Gene Clark, and then Michael Clark. Then you had Gene Clark leave after the second record, and then you had them essentially as a quartet until Notorious Bird Brothers. The cover of that record, you have McGuinn, Hillman, and Michael Clark. Crosby's only on like half of that album because he was fired from the band, so he didn't even make the album cover. But then he ended up going to Crosby, Stills, and Nash. And then after Notorious Bird Brothers was over, you had Michael Clark let go from the band. He ended up joining, essentially kind of joining the Flying Burrito Brothers in 1969, 68, 69. So then, Sweetheart of the Rodeo, you had McGuinn and Hillman as the 2 original guys, but then you had Graham Parsons show up on that just for one album. I think he was in the Birds for maybe a year, if even, maybe 9 months. Him and Kevin Kelly on drums, who was Chris Hillman's cousin. He was also only on just that one record. But then at that point, you already had Clarence White showing up in studio sessions. So you had that album, and then after that was Dr. Bird and Mr. Hyde. At that point, it was just Roger McGuinn and Clarence White. You had John York show up, and Gene Parsons would show up later on, and Skip Batten, and kind of stick to that lineup until the end. But even that lineup put out several albums. I mean, if you post Dr. Bird and Mr. Hyde, you had Easy Rider. At that time, you had Bird Maniacs, you had Untitled, you had Farther Along. So you had all these different albums, and far cry from Mr. Tambourine Man and Turn, Turn, Turn. So it was just crazy to think that the Birds had this huge switch, this change up between lineups. And then essentially McGuinn would form the original Birds. They would do one reunion album just called the Birds, and that kind of went out with a fizzle because it wasn't what the Birds were. It was kind of like, oh, we got the 5 original guys, but we're just going to show up with mediocre songs because we all have solo careers and we want our solo careers to be the songs that people hear. And this Birds thing doesn't matter. Again, at that point, you had Gene Clark, who was doing stuff with Doug Dillard, with Dillard and Clark. You had, again, Michael Clark and Hillman were in the Burrito Brothers. Hillman was starting to, do stuff. He did Manassas with Stephen Stills and Al Cooper and all those guys. And so, I mean, it's just the Birds are an anomaly. I think there's a video or something that I've seen online where a guy made like a family tree of the Birds and like all offshoots, what started, what finished. Because then you'd have Skip Batten and Gene Parsons end up joining the Burrito Brothers after Hillman left, and Graham Parsons was in there. So you had like half the Birds ended up in the Burrito Brothers, but at different times. McGuinn would put out solo records. Gene Clark would have a solo career, albeit not too successful. Graham Parsons would die very young. Michael Clark was kind of in and out of different things. Crosby, obviously, the most recognizable solo name of any of the Birds, I would say. So it's very, very crazy. Yeah, I mean, that Rickenbacker, that's my dream guitar, is the 12-string Rick. I would love to have it. Yeah. And you don't see bands doing that anymore. I mean, it was just the nature of the record business for, artists to put out a couple of albums a year, and they had to keep up with everything. I mean, that's why, you always look at, the Beatles, 1963, they were singing Love Me Do. And in 1967, 4 years later, they're singing Within You, Without You, and A Day in the Life. So it's, it's insane how bands during the 60s really had to keep up with one another. Yeah, they definitely had an impact, no question, especially on bands in the 90s, the alternative scene, for sure. But yeah, anyway, Easy Rider, I'll have to say Easy Rider is a cool record. The title track, Ballad of Easy Rider, is beautiful. It's got a co-write with Bob Dylan. The song Fido is fun. Oil on My Lamp, Jesus Is Just All Right. They did it before the Doobie Brothers version. A weird like sea shanty with Jack Tar the Sailor, which would kind of be a sign of where McGuinn would go with his solo career. He put out that record, Cardiff Rose, which was like kind of sea shanty like in a lot of ways. They do like a slow down version of It's All Over Now, Baby Blue. I'm not a fan of that. Gunga Din is awesome by Gene Parsons. Deportee is great. Let's see. Then they do like a weird like space song. McGuinn was interesting with his infatuation with space. I mean, Mr. Spaceman, CTA 102, all that stuff. And then he does Armstrong, Aldrin, and Collins about the moon landing. Just, it's weird. it's a weird ending, but pretty much a solid album with a few clunkers thrown in there. I'll just grab a stack of records. None of these really have any order. Well, I guess speaking of that kind of thing, I did. Yeah, you should listen to their version. It's pretty good. I mean, at that time, it was at some point McGuinn converted and kind of was doing a lot of like, gospel-y kind of songs. But yeah, they do a version. It's pretty heavy, actually. You should look it up. It's real brief. Jesus Is Just All Right. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, I didn't know it either until I got that because I mean, obviously, I knew the Doobie Brothers version, and I think the song even predates the Birds. I don't think they didn't write it, but yeah, a very solid version of that as well. Um, yeah, for my bluegrass and folky kind of people, this is another record that I picked up by this is by the Dillards, who I just mentioned with Gene Clark. Gene Clark would join forces with Doug Dillard, the banjo player for the Dillards, and put out two records called Dillard and Clark. I have one of them on SACD. Was it like the Fabulous Expedition of Dillard and Clark? It's really, really good country rock. But the Dillards are most famous for being on the Andy Griffith Show as the Darlin' Boys, the mountain family that would come down and get in trouble with Andy and Barney. The Dillards were the boys, the band, and Andy Griffith was really big in getting their careers jump started, and they were huge in the world of progressive bluegrass. And now, when I say progressive bluegrass, don't think that that's bluegrass that's talking about wizards and dragons and that kind of thing. Progressive bluegrass is essentially bluegrass that uses traditional bluegrass instruments: banjo, stand-up bass, guitar, mandolin, that kind of thing. But a lot of times is pulling from non-traditional places. Like the music is coming from more contemporary songwriters of the time. They're pulling from Bob Dylan, they're pulling from Gordon Lightfoot, from Ian and Sylvia, people like that. They're taking pop tunes and turning them into bluegrass melodies and bluegrass arrangements. And the Dillards were very big at the forefront of that. And fun fact, the Dillards opened up for Elton John before his famous Dodger Stadium show where he's wearing the sequin one-piece suit and the cap, that's so popular. They were the openers for Elton John at that show. So it's kind of cool. But anyway, I picked this album up. I knew nothing about it. It's called Homecoming and Family Reunion. It's a live album recorded in 79, August 8th, 1979. Essentially, they were being honored by their hometown of Salem, Missouri, and were made, honorary key holders. And it was called Dillard Day. The mayor was there. The family of the guys were there. Because two of the Dillards were brothers, Rodney and Doug Dillard. Rodney was the lead singer, and then Doug, obviously, on guitar. And then you had Dean Webb and Mitch Jane. Dean was the mandolin player. Mitch Jane was the stand-up bass player. So all sorts of cool stuff on this. I mean, again, it's a live album. Did not know that when I bought it, but that's cool. They do several different lineup changes here because the Dillards also went through a lot of lineup changes. So you have a couple of songs where they're playing with their dad, Homer, I think it was his name, on fiddle. Some of their wives make appearances as background singers, all sorts of stuff. And then you have the original guys that get back together. It was kind of a reunion for them. They had gone their separate ways. Some of the guys were still in the band, some were not. But they do a couple of songs like Ebo Walker is on here. Groundhog, which is a song that they used to do. Whole World Round. They also do traditional songs like Old Joe Clark, Tennessee Breakdown. But yeah, they do Ebo Walker. Daddy Was a Mover. Really, really good stuff. And then they had like little like fragments of spoken word stuff from like the mayor and like introductions by the guys and stuff. So it's kind of cool. It's kind of like this down home festival kind of situation that I really really like. So the Dillards, Homecoming and Family Reunion, pretty neat little record. Knew nothing about it until I picked it up. Let me see here. couple more records. I don't think I'm going to stay on much longer, but I have you all so I can go through a couple of things. Just stuff that I've been listening to, some stuff that I bought. Again, I showed this earlier. My favorite album of all time. Picked up a mono copy of Pet Sounds. This is the 50th anniversary edition. Honestly, it's the masterpiece by the Beach Boys. It didn't get better than this. Just perfect record. Wouldn't it be nice? God only knows. I know there's an answer. Hang on to your ego. Sloop John B. Caroline No. Pet Sounds. Let's go away for a while. Just solid stuff. I'm waiting for the day. Don't talk, put your head on my shoulder. I just wasn't made for these times. I mean, it's all really, really good stuff. And I'm a big fan of this copy. I had never had a mono copy and picked this up also at Dark Side Records online from Poughkeepsie. So yeah, very happy to have very, very happy to have this copy of Pet Sounds. It's my favorite ever of any band. This is it for me. I also I showed this the other day on a stream, and then people started jumping on, but I can talk about it a little bit more because I have you, and some of you maybe weren't on there. I also picked this up thanks to Alex over at Beer and Vinyl. Very, very cool to have this on vinyl. Obviously, this was the album that was supposed to follow Pet Sounds. Never came into full fruition because of Brian's mental state, because of the technology he was trying to invoke in the studio. The costs, recording Good Vibrations alone was like $25,000. It was the most expensive single ever at that time in 1967 or 66. This was supposed to come out in 67. Songs on here, Heroes and Villains is on here. Feel Flow, Surfs Up, just some beautiful stuff on here. And also some weird stuff, but Brian said the whole idea was for it to make you smile and for it not to be 100% serious. So, he's got funny sound effects, he's got like a mooing cow, he's got tools banging away. He has, people eating carrots and celery during vegetables. Apparently one of them was Paul McCartney. Was the first and only time that they worked together up until like 2004, where him and Brian did a song together. But this is the Smile Sessions 2011 is kind of a way to see what the album could have been, taking all the different elements that were recorded. Some of these songs ended up on Smiley Smile, Friends, 2020, Surfs Up, the albums that would follow, but none of them had the same impact as what should have been. And again, Alex was the one who told me that Plaid Room had this in stock. So couldn't believe that it was in stock for a normal price. Looks like it was pressed briefly. I mean, Discogs has it listed as a 2025 press, double record. But look at the sleeve here on the out. I keep my records on the outside, but this is one of the sleeves. That great photo of Brian, and it's interesting and it's kind of poignant because he's looking at this hourglass, and it's kind of like he knows his time is up, or that he doesn't have much time, or he's going against the clock with all the deadlines he had to meet for the studios and all the money that he was spending out of pocket to make his dream into a reality. And unfortunately he couldn't before he just collapsed. But this is the Smile Sessions by the Beach Boys. Again, my favorite version of Heroes and Villains and Good Vibrations are on this record. If you haven't heard those versions, please check it out. Check out the first three songs of Our Prayer, G, and Heroes and Villains. It doesn't get much better than that. And then the song Surfs Up, to me, is like Brian's, it is the most complex thing that the Beach Boys ever did. God Only Knows is my favorite Beach Boys song. Surfs Up is probably Suicide is probably technically the best. But yeah, Smile, the Beach Boys, so happy to have this on vinyl, especially since it just kind of goes in and out of print. Yeah. Real quick, I picked this up too. I showed that a while back. This is Horizontal by the Bee Gees. This has the song Massachusetts on here. This is also in mono on the Atco label. But again, if you only think of the Bee Gees as, Staying Alive and Jive Talking, their first several records are just fantastic. They blend Baroque pop, psychedelic, some folk, maybe a little bit of country, just some straight ahead pop tunes. Early Bee Gees are awesome. This one's no exception. You have a very young Bee Gee on the cover, Robin, Morris, and Barry, and then a couple of fellas from the band. I think this fella, I can't remember his name, just recently passed away. They actually had two of the original Bee Gees band members passed away within just like a month or so of each other within the last year or so. But yeah, I've only listened to it once. It did not knock me out, but the song Massachusetts is one of the best. So I'm very happy to have this on vinyl and in mono. Yeah, so yeah. Yeah, and then I've talked about this a million times. I'll show it one more time. This is the Speaker Wars debut self-titled record. Speaker Wars, founded by Stan Lynch, the original drummer of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. So if you are a Tom Petty completist or any of the side projects, I would recommend this album. Really, really solid stuff. It's, again, straight ahead rock and roll. I've listened to it twice now. You have John Christopher Davis is the other co-founder. Here are their photos. There's John and there's Stan right there. And, unfortunately, terrible album cover, but really, really solid rock and roll. Again, it's got that snarl that Tom Petty had, that Mike Campbell has with his singing. Stan sings on a track or two, so he's kind of got a similar kind of voice. The song Traitors South is my favorite on here. Kind of a tribute to Tom Petty in kind of a snarky way that Stan sings. And yeah, I highly recommend this if you like just straight ahead rock and roll tunes. The pretty tight band. I'll be interested to see if they do any kind of long tour, or if they do any kind of follow-up. It kind of went by the wayside, but I'm happy to have it. And yeah, it's still available on vinyl and CD, so check that out. Early Bee Gees are fascinating listening. Unexpected if you're not sure. Yeah, I mean, my first foray into early Bee Gees was Cucumber Castle, which was the one album that they did as a duo, because Robin quit the band to do a solo record, and then would come back because that solo record pretty much flopped. So that's like an acoustic-y kind of folk album. So I'm very happy to have that. But yeah, like Trafalgar, Odessa, Idea, Horizontal, all those records that I now have, which I'm happy to have. They're all very, if you like that Baroque style, kind of like Odyssey and Oracle stuff, Magical Mystery Tour kind of stuff, then I recommend those as well, for sure. Yeah, so that might do it. Kind of a small crowd tonight, but that's okay. You've been good, and yeah, I did not expect to be doing this, but not teeth hard to find too. Is that a Robin Gibb joke because of his teeth? Oh, that too. Yeah, and they're fairly inexpensive, like $15 or less, and they're all worth it. So I'm trying to collect all those early ones, and I have the Odessa felt cover for what that's worth. But yeah, I appreciate you all tuning in, especially you, Richard. I appreciate you keeping the chat alive. Camping, cage free. Craig was on for a minute. Jason, Kevin, Bob at the beginning. Trevor, Zach was on. I'm just rolling through the comments. Yeah, so yeah, appreciate everybody that watched, everybody that commented. Again, this was kind of last minute, so did not expect a very long stream, but you know, it's fine. So we'll hopefully be on at some point later this week, maybe. But again, I am going to really need to buckle down on packing this apartment. So yeah. Yeah, and thanks again, Richard, for the CD. I appreciate it. I will not say what it is so that the people on here will be in suspense to watch the video. But anyway, I appreciate you all. Thank you all so much. We will see you on the next one. Bye now.